A Heart That Was Never Mine, Part 1. I hated being set up with people. Did not always go well, especially when it was a blind date. I knew that my friends only had my best interests at heart when they had tried to set me up with any guy they thought was great. But it sometimes led to several awkward situations. Usually bad one-night stands where I had to block and avoid the guy. Meeting guys with weird fetishes, and this one time, a guy who already had a boyfriend. I soon forbade him from setting me up after that, and pleaded with him to understand that I was happier single. After Ross had left a bad taste in my mouth, I found it hard to trust anyone. The dating pool seemed to have changed vastly from when I was single 5 years ago. It was more about hooking up than forming true connections, and I didn't know which category I fell into with that. Sometimes I told myself that I was ready, and I would put my all into love. Then I would find myself picking up the phone and wanting to text him instead. But the urge never won. I would never let it. I thought I had learned all the tricks my friend had to get me to go out with someone, but I was wrong. They told me that we were just going to a party and it would help me get my mind off my sister, the only member of my family that I was still in contact with, who was sick. My mother and father cut me off when I told them I was gay at 18. It had not come as a shock. They did have old-fashioned views about stuff, but I had gotten tired of pretending as if I liked girls, which was a common thing in our town. Many gay people were in the closet when I was growing up, including one of my schoolmates, Lily, who came out several years after me. She had surprised me, which she had always seemed super straight. Back to my scheming friends. When I got to the party, which was classier than my usual ones, I only saw two of the people who said they would be there, Greg and Evan. The rest were nowhere to be found. It was only when I looked around that I noticed most people were sitting at tables. Some had colorful bands on their hands, and others did not. Some people were milling around, drinking alcohol, and I would recognize the flag for gay even if I was wearing duct tape over my eyes. So not only had they got me into speed dating, but they also had managed to find one queer friendly. I had to appreciate them for that. They had always been so thoughtful. You guys, I do not know whether to scold you or hug you. Why do you guys keep on trying to help me in my romantic life? I was a bit touched. I could never find it within me to be upset with them a lot. When we became friends, they did not judge me for my sexuality. They welcomed me with open arms, becoming my new family. Stay, please? Craig begged. Sure, but where are the others? I asked. Well, it was singles only night, and none of them are single or poly, so Evan explained. That made a lot more sense. Okay, not a problem. I'm only staying for 1 hour, then it's back home. Got it? I stated my only condition. Yes, sir. We're also going to try our luck. This is a very inclusive event. Evan winked. I said goodbye to him. A girl came up to me and started explaining the rules to me. Then she led me to a table where this guy was sitting alone. He was very cute and friendly, a bit too friendly. He barely talked about himself most of the time, and when he did, it was only because I liked him. I liked someone who had a bit more going from them than being agreeable. Then the bell rang soon, and I moved. This time, though, it was a girl, and we stared at each other weirdly. When we both showed our wristbands, and she was straight, the conversation loosened up. After that, we talked about life. I checked out guys in the room and exchanged relationship trauma, and pretty much had a new best friend after that. I saw that more than half an hour had passed, and I had not met anyone that I was interested in. So I turned to go. But as I was nearing the door, my sleeve got caught in something. I turned around, coming face to face with a ghost of the past. Hayden had been my sister's best friend and first boyfriend when she was in high school. She had been going through a hard time, refusing to let us know what was going on with her. Then one day, she told us that she was dating him. Things seemed to improve for her relationship with our parents once she was dating him because he was a nice guy. I did have a tiny crush on him growing up, but it never led to anything, and when he started dating my sister, I knew that the 1% chance we had was now impossible. They had broken up after high school. The relationship did not last long, and they both went to college. I never saw him again after that. Randy? What a coincidence, he grinned. He still had that perfect smile. Aiden! Well, I never thought I would see you again. I heard you left the country, I replied as we hugged. Oh, you know, there is no place quite like home. Leaving already? He asked. Would love to stay, but I have an early night, and I need to see Sienna tomorrow, I said. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I heard she was not feeling well. He looked down sadly. Yes, it's been difficult. Anyways, it was nice seeing you, man. I have to try and get a taxi now, I said, turning to leave. Wait, let me drive you. It's the least I can do for Sienna's little bro, he offered. I'm not so little now, I chuckled. He just shook his head and took my hand. I'd be lying if I said I did not feel happier when I saw him. He was always a nice person to be around, smart, nice, and full of determination. Pretty much the same as my sister. But she had not been that way for a while now. On the ride to my place, we caught up on each other's lives, and there was so much to talk about. Those 20 minutes were the best because we reminisced about funny things that happened in the past, leading me to laugh as I had never done before. He always had that quirky humor that I found so cute. He ended up giving me his phone number so that I could keep him updated on her condition. I felt so much lighter than I had felt leaving the house. Hopefully he would visit her and she would feel happy. She needed it. I had an early night so that I could get to the hospital in time. She was still asleep and I did not wake her. Some days she had too much energy and would beg to be let out to explore, but on others she was so lethargic that she would sleep for the whole day. Guess who I saw yesterday? I said to her as soon as her eyes opened. She managed a small smile. Mom and Dad? She asked. She always asked about them, even though she knew that they wanted nothing to do with the both of us. Me because I was gay, and her because of things she had done because of our mental health. Even though my father stood in front of a congregation and preached love and kindness, he had none of those in his heart. Hayden, I smiled. Hayden? I've not seen him since high school. Wow, that must have been a nice surprise. She sat up. She looked much more flushed and energetic. Maybe she still loved him. I had a feeling that if she saw him, it would make a big difference to her health. She started talking fast about Hayden and the moments they had shared as friends, but never once mentioned the relationship, which had been the only relationship of hers that I had known about. She hid so many secrets over the years, and I felt as if I did not know her sometimes. Let us take a selfie and send it to him, I suggested. Yes, she grinned. I quickly snapped a picture and sent it to him. That was the first text that I had ever sent him, which eventually led to a whole mess. But in the meantime, it led my sister to being happy. She asked me to come with him the next time I visited. And I did. Hayden and I spent a lot of time in each other's company from that day onwards. We would visit Sienna, which was always a blast, and on the days where we could not see her, we hung out because we were forming a friendship. We found out that we liked the same video games, which led us to forming a bond. The more time I spent with him, the more I realized what a cool person he was. I could spend hours in his company and not feel drained, even once. Since he was also new in town, I showed him some of the coolest spots along with my friends. They had freaked out the first time that I introduced him to them, even though I had explained to them previously that there was nothing romantic going on between the two of us. But according to Lisa, one of the girls, there was some chemistry. I dismissed those claims though because they were so ridiculous. I would do anything I could not to hurt her any more than she was. This was the longest that she had stayed in the hospital, but it was so that they could monitor her and give her on-site counseling. I could not help but blame my parents who had taught us to keep secrets. Every time we messed up as kids, or were honest about messing up, there was always some consequence. We ended up lying about most of the things just to avoid confrontation. Hayden was amazing throughout the whole thing, bringing her presents to cheer her up and talking to her. They had always had a connection, one that I could never describe. It was like they knew each other's needs before the other one even voiced them. I was sure that they would get back together soon. When I asked her why they broke up, she'd been vague about the details, saying that they were both at different places in their lives. But now it seemed as if there was no longer the case, and I could not help feeling deep jealousy. I wanted to kick myself when I felt myself desiring my sister's happiness. I was a terrible brother and she deserved so much better than me. She honestly had the worst luck when it came to family. One night, Hayden invited me to his house, out of the blue. He said that he needed to talk to me about something. You would think the man got paid to raise my heart rate in a way that he did not so easily. He had no idea that when he touched me on the shoulder, I felt sparks, or that when he hugged me, I spent the rest of the day trying not to remember what it felt like. When I got there, he gave me a hug that made me feel so warm that I felt it right at the very ends of my toes. You've been scarce. We missed you, he said. I'd kind of been avoiding going to the hospital whenever he was there because I hated feeling like I was intruding. I did, however, get to speak to him during texts and we called sometimes, but he made me feel hope every time he shared something new with me. But I knew that it would lead only to disappointment and hurt. I had my sister to think of, after all. Either way, he had some snacks for us, and a video game to play. We had an afternoon of just bonding as guys, talking about the past and how things were going in our life. I also let him know that my family had been split in two, with our parents disowning us. He said he knew what that felt like, but when I asked, he did not want to talk about it. Naturally, the conversation turned to relationships. So, did you meet anyone at the speed dating event? I wiggled my eyebrows. Oh, I was not participating. I was there to fetch something from a friend, and I bumped into you, he said. So, are you single then? I had no idea why I was asking. I tended to seek answers even if they could only hurt me. Yes, but there's been someone in my past who caught my eye, he smiled. Of course he meant Sienna. I did not blame her. They had history, and I could not deny the sparks between them. Well then, are you going to make a move? I asked. That's actually why I called you here. Then he kissed me, catching me by surprise. I fell back onto the couch, but I continued kissing him. My thoughts were suspended in space for a moment, and all I could think of was him, and how much I was enjoying the moment. But then my sister flashed through my mind, and I felt very guilty. I pushed him back from me and sat up. You did not like that? He looked puzzled. Should have not have done that. Sorry, but I have to leave. I panicked, getting up and heading for the door. He called after me, but I did not even want to hear it. My betrayal kept on playing through my mind, and I felt bad for enjoying even a second of it. But you got what you wanted, did you not? A voice said to me. I told the voice to shut up and leave me alone. I did not need my subconscious to be making this worse for me. And then, because Murphy's Law was not done messing with me, I got a text from my parents for the first time in years. I knew it was them because I had never blocked or deleted my mom's number. Mom, do not be at the hospital tomorrow. We're taking Sienna with us. She needs your father's guidance. That would happen over my dead body. I did not know what game they were playing, but I would not let them take her. They were probably going to use her to gain sympathy from the congregation or some sick twisted thing. But all I knew was that it was a bad idea for them to take her, and she would never agree to them. They knew nothing about her or her mental health. Even though I did not know any of her secrets, I did not reply. When I got home, my phone was blowing up with texts from Hayden. I switched it off and I ignored him for the rest of the night. The next day, I got up early to go and take Sienna from the hospital, as she was being discharged. When I got there, I ran into him. What are you doing here? I pulled him into a corner. I needed to talk to you. I need to understand why you've been ignoring me. He had a look of urgency. How could he have feelings for me when he was straight last time I saw him? Was he bisexual? I did not reply to him. I avoided his gaze as much as I could. Tell me you do not feel the same way, and I will leave you. Or tell me why you've been avoiding me, he begged. You dated my sister, for goodness sake, I reminded him. He looked at me with a very confused expression on his face. Then he started to laugh. Your sister did not tell you? We meant nothing. And just then, someone cleared their throat. I turned to the sound of the noise, and I saw my parents standing there. Wow, now you're fooling around with your sister's ex-boyfriend? The devil has really taken your soul, Ruth. I knew it was a sign for us to come here and take Sienna. She only has people who backstab her in her life, my father said, with a very proud expression on his face. I was having such horrible luck, of all the people to overhear our conversation. Mom, Dad, my shame made me want to crawl into a hole and die. I deserved every bit of the judgment on their faces. Do not even say anything. We are going to take Sienna, and we will not tell her of your betrayal. But I do not want you to ever see her again, my dad said. I was going to lose either way. If I told her, she was going to be heartbroken and hurt. It would be best if she was ignorant. No, you cannot, Sienna, Hayden started. I shot him a glare. Please leave. Done enough. To be continued. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.